Lots of recording equipment is super expensive. There are microphones that cost more than my car and consoles that cost as much as a house. And while it's nice to daydream about getting loads of new toys, I've put together a list of super helpful recording gear that's not quite as flashy and it's also not as pricey. In fact, you can get each one for under $50. We've got some stuff to help your room sound better, make your recording sessions go smoothly, and the last one is a great wild card that technically doesn't have anything to do with recording at all, but it's still an essential for any engineer or producer. So whether you're building a studio, you've got an Amazon gift card burning a hole in your pocket, or you're looking for a gift for that special producer in your life, let's take a look at some next level recording gear purchases you can make for under $50. The first item on our list today is a laser measure. It's kind of like a tape measure, except the nice thing is that you can operate it with one hand. There are lots of things that you might want to measure in the studio that are a little awkward, whether it's the distance from your snare to your overheads, the distance of your room mics, or even the distance of your monitors to your ears. A lot of times we'll skip using the tape measure when we know we should because it's kind of a hassle to use it when we're trying to set up a session. And frankly, who wants to look like a dork pulling out a tape measure in front of clients? The laser measure is so easy and discreet, making it much more likely that you'll actually use it. If you want to make sure that things are symmetrical in the middle of your room or that your mics are equidistant from the source you're recording, a laser measure is a quick way to check without having to look like a carpenter. Next up on the list is something that I've had in my control room for a long time, and if it grew legs and went missing, I would buy a new one immediately. According to people way smarter than me, long-term exposure to sound louder than 85 decibels can be damaging to your ear health, and for a proper mixing environment, your speakers should be somewhere between 70 and 80 decibels. But what does 85 decibels sound like? Unless you're a bit of a cyborg, chances are you have no idea. That's where the decibel meter comes into play. Every once in a while, I'll pull out the decibel meter and make sure that I'm not listening too loud for too long. As we power through sessions, it's not rare to keep turning the speakers louder and louder, especially when we're working with other people. So a decibel meter is a great way to keep your listening volume in check and protect your hearing. And speaking of protecting your hearing, next up on the list is the Loop Experience earplugs. We all know that it's smart to wear earplugs to concerts and loud events, but frankly, nothing is worse than jamming the pharmacy foam earplugs into your ears for several hours. The Loop earplugs are my favorite since they're discreet, fit in this tiny case, and they're ported to allow a little bit of ambient noise in. When I wear them out and about, I feel like the world is quieter as opposed to feeling like my ears are just plugged up, like when I wear cheaper earplugs. I was never an earplugs in public guy until I got a pair of Loops, so check them out if you also hate the bright orange construction worker earplugs. It's also worth mentioning that all the stuff in this video is available via the links in the description. This channel is brand new and it doesn't have any sponsors. So if you purchase anything using my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you, and you can help support a growing audio channel. So moving back into the more studio-centric gear, I highly recommend anyone with more than a handful of cables grab one of these cable testers. Over time, I have amassed a pretty sizable pile of XLR and instrument cables that may or may not work. When you're in the middle of a session or a show and something goes wrong, it's easy to just throw a potential problem cable in a bin and come back to it another day. Even if the cable wasn't the issue, it's still in the might be a problem bin, and therefore it's hard to trust. A cable tester will put your fears at rest once and for all. This one from Mackie can test pretty much any type of cable that you might have in the studio, which makes it an awesome choice. I think it makes a great gift too, since it's something that's super handy to keep around, but it's also not something that most people would think to buy for themselves. And once you know which cables are working, a DI that can split signals is a great investment for anyone who records a lot of electric guitar. If I'm recording with an amp, oftentimes I'll pull a clean DI signal at the same time. You can plug that clean signal right into your interface and then mic up the amp. Make 2 tracks and record both at the same time. That way, if you decide that you want to change the tone later, you can run that clean signal through an amp simulator or play it back through a different amp. It's also way easier to edit electric guitar before it's played through an amp, so if you're someone who is particular about timing or records lots of sloppy players, you can edit the dry guitar signal and then run it back through the same amp that you used when you were recording. The next piece of gear on the list is another one that's not super flashy, but it's nice to have on hand when you work with bands, record podcasts, or really do any audio work at all, and that's a compact headphone amp. Most interfaces only have 1 or 2 headphone jacks, which means you'll have one for the engineer and one for the artist. If anyone else wants to listen in, you'll be busting out the splitters to try and jimmy a solution. And if you're lucky, audio will actually come out of both ears. Save the headache of trying to jerry-rig something and grab this 4-channel headphone amp made by Monoprice. Even if you're just using 2 headphones, it's nice to put this in the vocal booth or the live room so the performer can be in charge of their own master headphone volume. And speaking of headphone volume, our next piece of gear is something that will stop headphone bleed in its tracks. If you've ever worked with someone who needs the click track super loud in their ears to stay on tempo, or they just love having the song blasting in their ears when they perform, you might have run into the problem of headphone bleed. That's when the audio that's playing through the headphones is actually picked up by the mic and then recorded into the song. This can be super problematic since you don't want a washed out click track in the background of your vocal recordings. The best way to fix this is by giving them a pair of in-ear monitors. Since these will play the music right into their ears, there is no risk of the mic picking it up. Be careful when you switch over from headphones to in-ears that you turn the volume down and gradually bring it back up, since these are going to be much louder than the headphones. If it was still 2010, this wouldn't have made the list since almost everybody carried earbuds with them. However, since the popularity of AirPods has taken off, it's pretty practical to keep these in your studios for those just-in-case moments. I actually have a pair of custom molded in-ears that I use for playing shows, but you can save a lot of money with these universal in-ears. And the last piece of studio equipment, the one that has almost nothing to do with recording, is the 8-cup Chemex pour-over coffee brewer. The reason I recommend every producer have one of these around is simple. It takes around 5 to 10 minutes to actively make coffee with a pour-over. That means whenever someone wants coffee, you get a few minutes of zen to heat up the water, grind the beans, and brew up a fresh pot. I don't even drink caffeine anymore, but I still like taking a break to make a carafe of decaf as a reset during sessions. If you get really good at making coffee, it will also earn you some major brownie points with your artists. Over the years, I've saved bands thousands of dollars from their Starbucks budgets, and I'd like to think that it's gotten me some repeat business, meaning the beans have paid for themselves over time. Hopefully this video helped you find some new fun pieces of gear for under 50 bucks. And if your budget is over $50, then this video right here is about one of my favorite pieces of gear that's just a smidge more. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe because I've got more videos like it coming every single week.